I've been hunting the Brooks Range since I was 16. For 3 days I tracked a single grizzly, never getting too close, never stirring him up, because he was the king of this place, and I was just passing through. Then, out of nowhere, a rifle cracked that wasn't mine, and I knew right then that everything I thought I knew about this land was about to change. The silence in the valley was thick, the kind that settles deep in your chest. The spring thaw had turned the ground into a soggy mix of mud and new growth. My boots squelched in the muck, each step deliberate, matching the bear's prints by the salmon stream. Those prints were big, with deep claw marks. Definitely an old male who'd claimed this ridge long before any of us ever drew tags. I respected that territory. I'd follow him, scope him out, then back off. That was the unspoken agreement. Hunt, observe, leave no trace. I set up camp on a gravel bar where the river curled like a question mark. The damp firewood hissed as the flames caught, sending sparks shooting into the sky where stars shimmered like they were wet. I leaned against a drift log, rifle resting across my knees, letting the cold settle in my lungs. Out here, the bear is the real deal. And every story you've heard about charging, bluffing, that bone-rattling roar, reminds you that you're just meat that learned to use tools. But the bear is also honest. He announces himself, tearing bark off trees, leaving steaming scat on the trail, warning you in every language the forest speaks. That night, the wind shifted. I woke to the scrape of claws on dead wood beyond the firelight. My heartbeat kept time with the slow drip of water from a nearby branch. I didn't move. Bears will circle a camp like a chess player circles a queen, slowly, testing angles. I kept my breathing shallow, listening to the creaks of my own joints, waiting for that huff that would tell me he'd made his decision. But the huff never came. Instead, the forest grew still, colder, as if the temperature itself had taken a breath and held it. I drifted off, convincing myself the bear had moved on. Dawn painted the sky a color like molten steel. I followed the grizzly's trail up a bench where the brush thinned and the sodden tundra rolled like ocean swells. The tracks were fresh, maybe 2 hours old. I knelt down, measuring a print against my hand. 5 inches across the pad, claw marks another 3 in front. Big boy. Then something didn't add up. A second set of prints crossed his, lighter and narrower, the imprint of a boot sole pressed into the mud at an angle that screamed running. I straightened, every sense on high alert. The bear hadn't been alone. Someone else had been on that ridge, moving fast, maybe even chasing. Bears don't chase people. People chase people. I worked the bolt on my rifle, chambering a round more out of instinct than strategy, and scanned the alders below. Nothing stirred. Still, the hair on my neck insisted I wasn't alone. I backtracked, cutting a wide circle until I found where the grizzly's trail crossed the intruders. There, pressed deep into the mud, I spotted what the rain hadn't washed away yet. A cigarette butt, filter crushed, faint lipstick smudged on the paper. Cherry red, a brand I hadn't seen since college. My stomach flipped. The crack came from the south, sharp, flat, not the deep boom of my .338. Someone was using a smaller caliber, maybe a .308 or a 6.5. The kind of round that doesn't waste energy on recoil. It echoed off the shale faces like a whip crack, sending birds bursting from the spruce in a black cloud. I dropped to one knee, heart racing. Heart racing. The second shot followed, before the first had even finished echoing in the valley. 2 shots meant something final. I thought of the bear, hoping he'd run, then cursed myself for even thinking it. Bears don't deserve to die like that. Ambushed, outgunned, possibly even lit up by a scope's glare. I moved downhill fast, boots slipping on wet alder roots. The wind carried the metallic scent of fresh blood before I even saw the body. The grizzly lay on his side against a log jam, hide twitching in death spasms. The shots had been clean, one behind the shoulder, one in the neck. Steam rose from the wounds, mixing with the morning mist. No hunter I knew would leave a bear like that. The meat alone was worth thousands, the hide even more. This wasn't hunting. This was something much uglier. A third cartridge lay in the mud, brass still warm. I picked it up. The head stamp read, 270 Win. A neck-down casing, fast and flat shooting. Not what you'd choose for grizzly. Whoever did this was either confident or reckless, maybe both. I pocketed the casing, unsure why. Maybe as evidence, maybe as a reminder that the rules out here had shifted while I slept. I circled the kill site, looking for tracks leading away. Instead, I found them heading toward me. Size 10 boot, same lug pattern as before, but now the stride was shorter, measured. The kind of steps you take when you're no longer chasing, but being chased. Or when you're the one doing the chasing. The realization hit me like a cold splash of water. The hunter had become the hunted, and the trophy wasn't the bear. It was me. I backed away, rifle up, scanning every shadow. The forest that once felt alive now seemed staged, every tree a prop, every sound a cue. I remembered the old cabin 5 miles downriver. Roof half collapsed, but walls still standing. If I could reach it before dark. I moved fast, not caring about noise anymore. Branches whipped my face. Twice I startled grouse that exploded underfoot like feathered landmines. Each time I swung the rifle, finger poised, expecting the shape that never appeared. The cabin squatted in a clearing of stunted spruce, logs gray with age, chinking long gone. Rain had slicked the south wall, making the logs dark and damp. Inside, dust motes danced in the single shaft of light slicing through a broken window. An iron stove stood cold, its door ajar like a surprised mouth. I barred the door with a length of pine, wedging it shut, then pulled the table against it for extra security. Outside, light was fading fast. The temperature dropped. My breath fogged in front of me. I started a fire with cedar kindling and birch bark, hands shaking more from adrenaline than the cold. Each pop of the wood sounded like a gunshot. I forced myself to eat. Jerky, chocolate, water from my canteen heated in a tin cup. The sugar tasted metallic. Sometime after midnight, the shots rang out again. 3, then a pause, then 2 more. They came from the ridge above the cabin, each one closer, like the shooter was triangulating. I snuffed out the fire, pressed my back to the corner where 2 logs met, rifle across my lap, safety off. The darkness felt thick, almost palpable. Dawn brought no light, just a wind that howled like a train. The cabin door rattled against its bar. I knew staying put was a death sentence. I slipped out the back window, dropped to the muddy ground and ran. The river roared nearby, swollen with spring melt, its voice drowning out my footfalls. I followed it downstream until the spray painted the rocks silver and the roar turned into a scream. The waterfall plummeted 40 feet into a basin of black water. Cold spray misted my lashes. I climbed the slick boulders, fingers numb, until I found a cave tucked behind the curtain of water. Inside smelled of moss and bear, but thankfully the bear wasn't home. I wedged myself into the narrow throat of the cave, knees pulled to my chest, and waited. Hours dragged on. My watch had stopped, moisture in the gears. I chewed on thoughts more than food. Had the shooter seen me enter? Was he waiting above, rifle trained on the cave mouth? I pictured him, beard flecked with rain, scope glinting, smile as thin as a wire. No face, just an idea of a face, and that was worse. I crawled out of the cave at dusk, inching through the bone-chilling stream until the roar faded to a whisper. The forest opened up into old-growth cedar. One giant had fallen ages ago, hollowed by rot. I squeezed inside, bark scraping my parka, and pulled moss across the entrance. The space was barely longer than my body. I could hear my own pulse. Above, boots squelched on the soft ground. The steps circled once, then twice. A hand brushed the cedar trunk, gloved fingers testing for warmth. I held my breath until spots danced in my vision. The steps moved on. I don't remember falling asleep, just jolting awake to the metallic click of a bolt closing. It was close, inside the hollow close. My eyes adjusted. A silhouette crouched at the entrance, rifle barrel poking through the moss. I couldn't see a face, just the shape of a man and the glint of a scope where his eyes should be. Thought the bear was the problem, didn't you? Turns out the problem walks on two legs. The voice was calm, almost amused. I had 1 second, maybe less. I drove my boots into the roof of the hollow. Rotten cedar gave way in a shower of splinters. I rolled left, felt the rifle bark, felt the slug rip bark above my head. Then I was off, running, lungs burning, through brush that clawed like barbed wire. Behind me, the shooter laughed, low, satisfied, the sound of a man who'd waited a long time for this moment. I don't know how far I ran. The forest blurred. Branches whipped blood across my cheek. I burst onto the river road where my truck sat angled in the ditch, keys still under the visor. The engine turned over on the third try. Tires spun, caught, and threw gravel like shrapnel. I didn't look back. Somewhere behind me, the man with the .270 is still out there, maybe watching this video, scope propped on a log, smirking at how close he came. Maybe he's moved on to another ridge, another bear, another hunter who thinks the biggest danger has fur and claws. I filed a report, handed the warden the brass casing. He nodded, took notes, promised patrols. But the mountains are vast, and the spring rains erase tracks faster than any justice system can move. So I'm sharing this instead. If you head north, remember the rules you learned. Make noise, carry bear spray, respect the apex, are only half the lesson. The other half walks upright, uses a lighter, leaves cherry red cigarette butts in the mud, and hunts the hunter. Stay safe out there. And if you hear a shot that doesn't echo quite right, run. If this story chilled you like it chilled me, hit subscribe for more tales from the edge. Drop a comment with your own close call. anonymously if you prefer. And maybe next time you're in the wild, take a glance over your shoulder now and then. The bear might not be the one following you.